Hey, everybody. Thank you. We are here in this Q&A session or this discussion on Synapse Data Warehouse in Microsoft Fabric. This is a hybrid session, so we have you guys here and we have a ton of people online as well. We'll start off with introductions. I'm Priya Sathy. I am Director of Products for Synapse Data Warehouse. And
Dan, I'm a VP for Synapse.
So just as I kick off, I want a quick show of hands. People here and people online. Anybody still not know about Microsoft Fabric? Oh, wow. I actually did get 2 people online. Okay. Okay. I do have 1 or 2 slides to just start this conversation. For those of you who already know everything about Fabric, there's been a lot of material posted online. I would say get your questions prepared and ready. So recap, what is Microsoft Fabric? It's the data platform for the era of the AI. We're giving you a complete analytics platform, every analytics workload. So it comes with 7 workloads from data factory to data warehousing, data engineering, data science, real-time analytics, Power BI, and the latest and greatest one called Data Activator. The entire platform is completely open. We have separated out storage and compute. You have compute with the 7 workloads, and we're shipping with what is called as one lake, which is one SaaS lake for the entire organization. We're storing data in open data format of Delta Parquet. Every workload knows how to read Delta Parquet. Every workload knows how to write Delta Parquet. And it's deeply embedded into Microsoft 365, so Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint, Teams, so business users can get value immediately. And it is also going to deliver AI co-pilots so users can discover insights, advanced insights. This session, we are going to talk about our data warehouse core scenario, which is you guys are all here, folks, hopefully with a SQL background and interested in warehousing. You're using this sort of a pattern where you're getting your data, landing it into the warehouse, either using pipelines, data flows, copy command, and you're transforming it and you're building insights, whether using Power BI for your BI or other querying techniques. So I'll just recap with a quick set of capabilities, and then we're going to open it up fully for questions. So what is the data warehouse that's available to you in Microsoft Fabric? So it's an enterprise scale data warehouse supporting that same open data format, a Delta Lake behind it. Any data that's ingested through the warehouse gets stored in one lake as a Delta Lake, so Delta tables. For you guys that care about performance, out of the box, it is no knobs performance. So we give you out of the box performance, minimal setup. You hopefully saw it in some of the demos yesterday or some of the demos online. It's one click. You don't need to set up your storage, no network provisioning, no, compute, workload management or any of that. You get simple, intuitive experiences, and hopefully you saw that in the demos as well. And whether you have a citizen developer in your organization or you have an advanced professional, you can start by using WYSIWYG, click, click, drag, drop, or you can start with writing T-SQL. It's a lake-centric warehouse, as I mentioned. The difference is we are not storing the data in the proprietary SQL Server data format. We are storing all of the data in one lake in that Delta Lake shape. And this gives you the ability to scale that storage, that one lake storage. It also gives you the ability to scale your compute, your data warehouse compute, almost infinitely. All workloads fully integrated. So you don't have to do much. Pipelines fully integrated right out of the box. Data flows fully integrated. Power BI fully integrated right out of the box. You can do data loading like you do today at scale using pipelines. You can use write stored procedures. And if you use the warehouse, just like we've done before in all SQL warehouse generations, we give you full multi-table transaction guarantees and multi-statement transaction guarantees as well through the SQL engine. In this version, what's exciting is that you can also build virtual warehouses or logical warehouses. You can basically create lake houses with a shortcut to your data wherever it is, in whichever lake it is. Hopefully you guys saw that we support ADLS Gen 2 and also S3 and other clouds in the future. You can create a shortcut to your Delta lake, no matter which lake it is in, and you can query without any data movement. Just using three-port naming or using the visual query editor. This also gives you, just like any enterprise platform, end-to-end performance, usage visibility, and governance and security, just like all of Fabric workloads. So you have the flexibility, whether you're trying to build a data warehouse, a data mart, or a data mesh architecture for your organization, you have the flexibility. With that, I'm going to stop and open it up for questions. I know lots of hands, and folks online, please do ask your questions on the chat as well. We have moderators on chat who will be able to answer some of those questions on chat as well.
How would you manage deploying to like a dev, test, and prod environment for Fabric?
Excellent question. So in the demos, we didn't show you yet. We do have CI/CD capabilities, continuous integration, continuous deployment capabilities. With CD, we had deployment pipelines, and if you guys have used Power BI before, we will support those deployment pipelines where you'll be able to move from dev to test to prod workspaces. We also have integration with Git, so you can do, manage your code in Git. We're also going to support Azure DevOps, and this is all in our roadmap coming up.
Just one thing to add, the integration story in Fabric is intended to work for all the artifacts and all the workloads. Of course, it applies to data warehouse as well with everything that Priya just mentioned.
Earlier we had dedicated pool pricing and other components. Let's say for copy data activities, I used to get billed for those. How is the consumption going to come about for this one?
Excellent question. So Fabric, all workloads ship with universal capacities. It's one capacity that can be used by any workload. So you're not going to have to worry about getting to buy different, workloads. You use a workload, you pay for that workload, and there's the pricing, we're not announcing it today. We're not announcing it yet, but it'll come out shortly. But we have simplified it to a universal capacity model.
Can you talk about the partner ecosystem and how do partners integrate with Fabric?
Yes, we have a ton of both SI and ISV partners that have been working with us for several months now. And they are, with ISVs, if there's a specific question about a specific ISV, happy to answer that. But if your question is about how do ISVs integrate into Fabric, we do have a lot of investment going into building APIs and the type of capabilities that ISVs would need to build on top of Fabric.
I want to take a question from online, if you don't mind. It's a really good question, and I think and probably it's the last question that we'll take about Power BI, but it's a really good question. I'm reading the question now. It looks like Power BI requires Delta formatted data to be V-ordered for optimal performance. Will Spark libraries in Azure Databricks have the ability to generate data V-ordered data sets? So let's go through this for just a second because it's an important topic. V-ordered is a way to make better Parquet. How we do it, it's our secret sauce. But the result is pure Parquet. There is, I can tell you practically what it works. We are shuffling the rows in order to maximize the likelihood of run length encoding. Power BI, SQL, and everything else will give really good performance on top of Parquet files. You are going to get top class performance in SQL on top of Parquet files, whether in Warehouse or Lakehouse, in Power BI on top of Parquet files, whether they are generated with Databricks or with our Spark or with a third-party tool. VOrder, it's a way for our tools to generate better Parquet. There is nothing in the format. The format is entirely open. We are not cheating in any way or form. So you don't need VOrder to do that. Now, that being said, we do not intend any libraries other than the native Fabric libraries to produce vOrder optimized Parquet. But it is Parquet. That is, looking at the Parquet generated with vOrder, you will not be able to tell whether it's vOrdered or not.
Thanks for your time. I have two questions, if I could. The first one is, could you speak in general terms about the future of SQL? Because it seems like SQL might be playing a very different role in the future than it did with me using it 10 years ago or so. So that's my first question. My second question is, I've got an implementation that's due in August. I'm thinking that probably I should continue with my existing data lake versus trying to do something with Fabric. I see you guys nodding your head. So the second question maybe is okay, but I'd be interested in your.
I want to touch a bit on the second as well. If you want to try it with Fabric, there is lots of it to learn. If you need for your implementation a GA product by August, Fabric will not be a GA. I'd love to learn your feedback about Fabric. But continuing with your current lake first pattern is going to be the easiest way to move to Fabric when you go to GA. So that's your choice. Future of SQL. I kept hearing that SQL is going to go away for 20 years or so. Future of SQL is good. What happens is that there are lots of people that are coming from universities today that speak other languages, prefer other languages. And right now we are forcing our customers to make a painful choice. Should I accommodate the Python crowd or the SQL crowd? And honestly, that's not a challenge. At the end of the day, SQL is a fantastic language for querying data. How you are shaping that data is a separate problem. So I do not believe that the future of SQL is in any way under threat more than it was 20 years ago. SQL is great. Now, I don't know if your question is about SQL in warehouse analytics or SQL in OLTP. SQL in OLTP has another great future ahead of it, and there's no threat there. But there is one aspect related to the future of both SQLs that I want to touch a bit because it's important to Fabric, and we did not talk much about it. We are making significant investments in what we call today Synapse Link, which is the ability to reflect an OLTP database through change data capture streams into the lake. And you are going to see that over the next 6 months or so. And that is going to kind of bring together the two futures of SQLs that we are talking about.
Does Fabric support out-of-the-box indexes? And if not, how easy is it to build indexes on your data?
Right now, you don't have support for indexes. We will have support for Z ordering. That'll come up shortly. Does that answer your question? Yeah. There's actually a question, quite a few questions online as well, and I'm going to try to address it, pick a couple from online as well. There was a question, will there be full T-SQL support, stored procedures, views, system version tables? Yes, there will be. There is quite a bit already, and we are tracking to, adding more and more T-SQL capabilities. If there's something that's missing, I do want to encourage you guys to go join the community. We announced our launch of our community and throw in ideas, and we're constantly, the engineers and PMs on our teams are constantly monitoring, and we'll be delivering to you every single month.
We are trying to, but we are going to listen to your feedback, really. Full, it's tough.
Yeah, go for it.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was asking about scalability. And I heard that you could have multiple workspaces for your one lake, and each workspace would have its own meta catalog or Hive meta catalog, right? And so,
Hive, not necessarily.
Not Hive, but meta catalog, yes. And so, but if they're separated, is it a one lake? Can you use a virtual warehouse to query multiple workspaces?
Shortcuts are the answer
Yes.
for that. You can very easily create a shortcut from one workspace, which is going to expose everything in your warehouse or lakehouse or selective tables into a different workspace. So I can, if you give me access to the tables in your workspace, I can shortcut them in my world, and I can run my compute on top of your data without actually charging occurring for your workspace.
And then one other question follow-up. The Databricks, I heard somebody mention in one of the questions before, Delta format, those are going to be different catalogs, right? So you would have a problem with syncing or not?
Our final version of the truth for catalog is in the one lake storage. If I'm creating a shortcut that is pointing to a Databricks output ADLS Gen 2 location, we will record that as if it were local. We register that in our catalog. So our catalog is based on what one lake can see. So No, we don't foresee problems on that side. And it's not a Databricks specific statement. It's a statement about data that may be external to OneLake. Everything that is external is mapped to OneLake through a shortcut, and then it's registered in our system.
Hi, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm about halfway through an implementation of Snowflake on Azure. Is there any plan roadmap for integrating that as one of the shortcuts or directly into it because I'm already there?
No.
Okay.
But I can go a bit in details, and why no? It's not like first Snowflake today. They do not use an open format. They have great separation of storage and compute. They invented it, but their format, the native format, is not open. They're making big efforts to integrate with Iceberg. I know they have a preview, to my understanding right now, to operate on top of Iceberg. And we intend, we're not, I mean, Delta is fantastic for Microsoft customers. We plan to open up to Iceberg one day. Maybe there is a future there, but at this very moment, if you were to create a shortcut from Snowflake storage into our system, we would not be able to read it. That's why.
It's about the only option I have is dump to Parquet and then push out. Yeah.
There are some other options, but we can discuss them offline.
Yeah.
For the existing Synapse customer, how's the transition to Lakehouse looks to you? So will the data continue to go in Synapse, or will it continue? I mean, will it go to data? I mean, Lake.
It's a really good question. So existing Synapse customers, there's actually multiple options, right? You can stay on Synapse. It's PaaS. We launched it as Platform as a Service several years ago. It will continue to exist as is. Microsoft Fabric is SaaS. And so there's that option. Second option is for you to, if you're starting new projects and you want to start, using Fabric as your serving layer, for Power BI reporting, the ML capabilities, you can adopt a lake-first architecture. For those new projects, land your data into Delta in the lake, and you can create a shortcut, what Bogdan just talked about. Create a shortcut, it's immediately queryable. And the third option is we are building migration tooling. We will have that out to you guys because we know there's millions of lines of code out there in T-SQL that does ETL, updates to tables, and we will help you with the migration.
So for example, if a customer has like 1,000 tables in Synapse right now, right? And it's an enterprise system for reporting. So in the same Synapse, should the tables continue in the same version or Lakehouse? Because it's not one project, it's not a new project, it's an existing enterprise system for the company.
It's a really good question. So let me clarify a number of things. So Lakehouse in our world, in Fabric, means a database whose tables are managed by Spark. Warehouse is a database whose tables are managed by the SQL transactional system. Both of them happen to store the tables in Parquet format. Now, as a customer, if you want to move from a consolidated system, which has storage and compute, towards a system that has the ability to scale up and down elastically, you need to move to Trident. Now, from a customer perspective, you never have to move it into a warehouse, into a lakehouse. You can choose to keep it as a warehouse, but you will need to create a new Fabric. Yeah, sorry, I'm so 2 years. You need to create a Fabric warehouse and need to change your ingestion mechanism, pipeline, store procedure, what else, to go towards this new warehouse. And your world will not change. It's still a warehouse with the side benefit that your Spark friends can read the data if you have Spark friends. If you don't have Spark friends and don't care about this, it's just a warehouse. I mean, nothing changes for you, but you still need to move from the existing Synapse storage and capacity, which are proprietary, and to the new warehouse in Fabric that is going to allow you this flexibility of compute.
Thank you.
Is there any fundamental difference behind the scene from the engine level between the Synapse workspace and the Fabric, specifically table structure? For example, all the distribution behind the table, is any optimization from the aspect?
Okay, so there are many changes. What we did is that we brought together we have two products today. We have serverless product and the dedicated product. Serverless is beautifully elastic, but it's slow. Dedicated is very fast, but it's hard to scale the compute. We brought them together. We rewrote the engine. So there are many, many changes. We brought the elasticity of the serverless with the indexing, caching, and everything that you love, and the CCI part that you love inside the dedicator. So we have a new engine. Now, this new engine, for instance, it's optimized for Parquet. That means that, for instance, you cannot create heap tables. But you don't need to create heap tables anymore because Parquet is going very fast. That's one example. In terms of partitioning, for the GA, we plan to support Z-ordering as the recommended way to create index and partitions. Why? Because it's the kind of partitioning that is well understood by all the other engines. For the future of data warehouse, probably shortly after GA, we plan to add hash distributions and other partitioning mechanisms, and you will have the ability to use that. Hash distribution, for instance, is a method of partitioning the data that can be well leveraged by the SQL query optimizer, but we need to upgrade our Spark query optimizers to use that meta information because it doesn't result in a clean separation of the Parquet files. So we are going to add that feature, but simply best practices in Gen 2 will be different in this new engine that we are building.
Okay, that means that it's not a simple migration from Synapse Workspace to the Fabric, where we're going to have to re-engineer and take a look at all the underlying data and how it's being used, and then come up with the different, I don't know what kind of partition or distribution you're going to have in Fabric. So all of that is not a shift and lift and shift type of migration.
Or you can choose to wait if you really have benefits.
So.
You can choose to wait a bit. But the one thing I want to suggest you, the engine that we have right now is faster than the engine we had before. You may be pleasantly surprised, or you may be unpleasantly surprised because we didn't finish it. We're in public preview. But it's worth giving a try. Because again, the old engine worked, the best practices for the old engine were tuned for that particular engine. This is a new engine. Not everything that worked great for Gen 2 is going to work great for this new SQL.
Thank you.
Did you want to address any questions online?
So there's a bunch of questions here. Okay, how do you address the latency involved in moving data from source to Delta Lake and then Direct Lake? Everybody know about Power BI Direct Lake mode? So one of the things that we're investing in, which is a link to our operational systems, operational databases to be able to get real time. If you guys have used Synapse Link, that's in market today. We're investing in something very similar and bringing it into Fabric as well to keep your OLTP in sync with the link. This is going to be as near real as possible. If you've used Synapse Link, you're probably used to it and you're seeing it. Our intention is to bring that as well. And the Direct Lake mode, I think this was specifically the Power BI Direct Lake mode. Power BI Direct Lake mode operates directly, just like every other workload that knows how to natively read Delta in Microsoft Fabric. Power BI Direct Lake mode does exactly that. And it is work that we've done to take Parquet and be able to read it in the shape Power BI understands and is as performant as Power BI in import mode today. Yay.
Does Fabric support any data share capabilities, or is it planning to if it doesn't support that now?
Data sharding capabilities. Oh, data share capabilities. So there is sharing, and we do have sharing that's already available today, sharing within your organization. If it's not in the product right at this moment, it is coming out to you where you will be able to share with another AAD user that's within the tenant. You can also do B2B sharing. Power BI is already part of Fabric.
Do you mind if I suggest that we take this question to Christian Wade and the Power BI crew? Because we choose to stay focused on data warehouse, if you don't mind. Or you can take it offline after the session, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And there's multiple layers of security, and I'll try to deconstruct it the best I can. First of all, in Fabric, you have the concept of Fabric workspaces as well. Fabric workspaces, think of it. I have an HR workspace, a finance workspace, different workspaces for departments or teams within the organization. You have different roles that you can assign at the workspace level, an admin, member, contributor, and a viewer. Now, within that workspace, you could have different items or artifacts. A warehouse is an item, a lakehouse is an item, Power BI report is an item. All these items can also have different levels of permissioning, and they can be shared with individuals within the organization, or if you're using Azure AD B2B, it can be shared as well that way. The next tier down is at the data security level. We have, yesterday, Arun and Amir talked about one security at the lake, where that should be coming soon. You will be able to apply security constructs at the lake. Say you have Delta tables, you apply certain security permissions on that, and all workloads in Fabric will honor it, including warehouse. In addition to that, if you guys here, all of you warehouse folks, love SQL, you're used to SQL. We support object level security right now in SQL. You can continue to use, grant, revoke, denies to apply SQL security on views, on tables, on schemas, stored procedures, and provide specific execution. In our roadmap is to support RLS, CLS, dynamic data masking as well. At the core, we do expect, if you want to use all workloads in Fabric, though, that you would use one security.
Thank you. So I'm interested in confidential computing. It's sort of similar to the data sharing conversation, particularly with the enclaves that allow for multiple parties to be able to access and contribute to the data. I know that at this point, for the purposes of analytics, Data Explorer is what I believe is supported. So my question is really, do we expect either Fabric or some of the other workloads to at some point make their way into the confidential computing realm as well?
Yes, but probably not by the end of this year. It is something that we are seriously considering. We are getting requests. We have a few other problems we are trying to solve first.
Okay.
I have there are a few comments in the chat that that microphone doesn't work and that the questions from the audience are not heard.
I think it's fixed now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
There was a question on the chat about, can notebooks read the Delta tables generated by Warehouse? Yes, absolutely. It does it yeah.
So the million-dollar question of when do you think the data warehouse for Fabric will be GA?
Excellent question. I know that's one of the top questions I've been asked in the last 24 hours. Well, we need your feedback. Just like any good enterprise workload, any good enterprise product, we need your feedback, and that is the intention of this public preview. Start playing with the product, give us your feedback, give us your ideas of what makes this enterprise class, what's missing, and we will take all of that into consideration, and we will meet our general availability bar at Microsoft, and we'll have a date for you guys soon, hopefully.
I'd like to take another important question from the chat window. Is Fabric available in M365 Government Cloud? To my knowledge, and I may be wrong here, I'll just share my best knowledge. I don't think we are available right now. I think the last I heard about this is that we plan to be available within 3 months after our GA, 90 days after our GA.
There's a bunch of questions around why use data marts with Fabric. I'll take that one while Joanna walks to the next person to get a question in. So data marts are awesome if you have business users that are just using Power BI and just want small scale, self-service analytics capabilities, don't care, it's no code, use visual querying and all of the no code or low code capabilities of data marts. Data marts is also part of Fabric. Our intention is to continue to ship it that way, continue to keep it in Power BI as just literally a small scale data mart that satisfies the self-service business user. And we will make it generally available.
Yeah, hi. I understand there are some new features in Fabric. Are you going to introduce the same features in Synapse? And if not, so are we looking at any timeline where we need to, migrate the Synapse functionality to Fabric? And is the data migration, which is in Synapse also is in Azure and in SaaS also is going to be the same? Are you going to provide any tool or it's just going to be pointed?
So let's go step by step. We made significant changes in Fabric, in the SQL engine, as well as in everything else we do in storage that are not compatible with the Synapse architecture. So we are not going to backport those changes. It would mean rewriting Gen 2 to work on Fabric. That being said, that product is fully supported. We are going to support it for years. I do not know yet how many. So first we need to get to GA with this product, and we need you guys to be happy. So we will support that. We will keep investing into features that are specific to that customer base. But backporting is not really an option because of the massive architectural changes that we have made. And yes, we will provide tools for migration. The complexity of the migration depends a lot on how you are using your data warehousing today. We have customers that are shaping their data in the lake with Spark or what else, and then they're lifting it into a warehouse with a pipeline, and then they're serving it from the warehouse. Now, for that particular pattern, migration is easy. Just don't load it into a warehouse. Just create a shortcut and put the SQL frontend. Now, we have other customers that have intense store procedures and operations that are loading data from elsewhere. There's no lake staging. For those, we are going to provide migration tooling.
I want to address a question online. This was around, is MPP used behind the Fabric warehouse? Absolutely, yes. This is still an MPP engine. It still is based on the core capabilities of SQL Server, distributed system, our query optimizer that's been time tested, been in market for a long time. And some of you guys might also know about our distributed query processing engine called Polaris. If you guys don't know about Polaris, we have tons of articles published online about it. It is based on that core query optimizer and distributed query processing engine, and it is the MPP engine. The follow-up question, does it still have 60 distributions? Something that we did, and I have 2 slides, since I see a repeated pattern, I'm going to show those 2 slides to tell you guys what is this data warehouse. Now, this content is available to you guys online, but in case you haven't watched any of that yet, it's okay. Let me just spend 2 minutes on this, right? What did we do with the data warehouse? First of all, the Synapse serverless SQL pools, and we have Synapse dedicated SQL pools. That's the Gen 2 versions that's in market today. We brought them together and took the different components, took the IP, and brought together to build this version of the data warehouse. So it's still based on those time-tested components that have been in market for years. The difference is, we took that proprietary storage format, that data format, and we said, well, it wasn't working for customers. Customer only wanted 1 copy and 1 lake, and we said, let's embrace that. Let's strip that part apart, and we stored it as Delta in 1 lake. And it is a transactional data warehouse, just like you're used to, that supports that open data format. But if you're using SQL, you're using the SQL front end, then expect to get ACID guarantees through SQL. And the other part of this is what we did with the dedicated clusters ties into the question that came up. So dedicated clusters, we replaced it by serverless compute infrastructure, fully serverless compute infrastructure. What does this mean? You saw there's no provisioning or anything required in the demos. Hopefully you saw those demos. As your job comes in, as your query comes in, physical compute is assigned in milliseconds. You don't need to provision that. And actually, as the job gets executed, you only pay for what was used. And because of this, you get infinite scaling. So you're not stuck with the number of nodes, and you're, of course, stuck with what you purchase. But you get the dynamic resource allocation. So your data volume increases, your query complexity increases. We can scale out, up and down. And we do that automatically with no additional work on your side. And because we do resource pooling, right, the serverless infrastructure and just provisioning as the job needs it, you get efficiencies, and you will also see efficiencies in your pricing when we disclose the pricing.
I'd like to take an online question that I really like. Can I use Snowflake in Fabric without creating the Delta Lake? Yes, I mean, you could, but why? You could copy all your data in Delta Lake. You can store it in because all the engines, I mean, Parquet and Delta is part of the fabric, and I mean that in a lowercase f sense. Basically, it is the fabric of analytics for Microsoft. Any engine that you are going to use is going to deposit data in that format. But you can, by all means, use either import from Parquet or a T-SQL statement to pull your data from the warehouse from the SQL frontend, and you can move it into Snowflake, Nest to Fabric, and create your own copy there. And yes, you can.
We have a question over here.
Hi, good afternoon or good morning. In previous conversations, there was mention of the concept of mounting existing Synapse environments into Fabric. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. So you have existing Synapse dedicated pools. We'll give you the capability to link that and bring that data as well into Fabric via the capability I talked about, Fabric Link, that we're working on. That is something that we're working on for the future.
Take another online question because it's important. Will Fabric plus Synapse be able to replace, completely replace Azure SQL in the future? That is not the intention. We are chasing a different target. Azure SQL is a fantastic OLTP database. If you want to get thousands of transactions happening every second, Parquet is not the format. If you want to go find the needle in the haystack and figure out what was shipped by one particular carrier one particular day, SQL is a great database for that. If you want to figure out how many packages were shipped across the world and you want to scan vast amounts of data, that's what Synapse is for. So we don't plan to replace Azure SQL. We are partnering very closely with Azure SQL to make sure that their transactional world gets reflected through Synapse Link into Fabric so you can do analytics on top of that.
There is a question online that I'll take. Will Fabric only work with Power BI premium capacities? So Fabric will work with Power BI premium capacities. In addition to that, we also have Fabric capacities. You probably already saw that online as well. And the Fabric capacities are much more granular than the Power BI premium capacities.
Okay, well, that was my question between Premium and Pro, but I'm going to ask my other question. What about Purview? What about data lineage?
So is there. We are integrating with them. But let's go a bit step by step. In Power BI, we have a built-in catalog. Now it's called Data Hub. It's there for a few years. In Power BI, we are tracking every artifact that is getting created. When we designed Fabric, we brought together lots of infrastructure from Synapse workspaces and all, but also lots of infrastructure from Power BI. You may notice that the look and feel is somewhat similar to Power BI. So everything that has to do with tracking, with lineage, with artifact, with information protection. Like in Power BI, we had that feature where you are applying an information protection label to I think, a data flow, and it goes all the way to export to Excel. All that logic is carried over to Fabric. So that means that basically Fabric, as of now, has a built-in data catalog, Data Hub, which is designed for Fabric consumption, and it does everything that you were seeing in Power BI. We had very good integration with Purview, and we are going to have an even tighter integration with Purview in a few months, so before our GA. So Purview is there. It's a fantastic enterprise tool, and our integration with Purview is going to be built on top of this Data Hub and on top of the features that we inherited from Power BI.
There's a question, what version of Delta? It's 2.3, right, Bogdan? 2.2? 3. 2.3.
You answer partially to the Purview question. I had a similar question with the Purview, right? So Purview will continue being integrated in such a way that we can have an enterprise data catalog, including Fabric. And you will have, including, so the Unity catalog integration will continue being part of the Purview itself, right? And you will integrate with Purview.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And the second question, I think, was on online as well. A lot of us probably already start using the data lakehouse with the Databricks having the Delta Databricks, of course, and having bronze, silver, and the gold, right? So how do you see that the relation? It's already implemented. A lot of clients have that comparing with Fabric, and how, move forward.
So the easiest, there are two answers here. The easiest migration path to Fabric is keep doing what you're doing with Databricks. They are our partners. I mean, The reason we picked Parquet and Delta as opposed to Iceberg as our first open source implementation is that a large number of Microsoft customers are using happily Databricks. We don't want to force them to change anything. If they're happy, they should stay happy. So the quickest way to start using the Fabric engines on top of your Databricks medallion structure is to create shortcuts from your gold lakehouse in Databricks, which is an ADLS Gen 2 property, into Trident Lakehouse, Fabric Lakehouse. And all the engines are going to work. You are going to get Power BI Direct Lake working. You are going to get SQL working. You get all. So that's the quickest path to migrate. In the future, we believe that we have features in our Synapse Spark that are excellent. But again, it's an open format, and the beauty of an open format, I mean, Fabric is two things. It's an analytics platform for Microsoft, and it's a collection of engines. As an analytics platform for Microsoft, we do want to partner very well with Databricks, and there are many situations, just as have been for the last couple of years, where we are truly better together. And there are situations where we believe our Spark is going to do better. We want customers to decide which is the engine they want to use, and they have to have a single copy of data. That's how we are thinking. Does it answer the question?
So there's a question online about, can I access query the Synapse Data Warehouse and Fabric using other tools like Tableau? If so, how? Absolutely. Your warehouse has a connection string, a SQL endpoint connection string that you can use, and you can use that to connect Tableau, or you have JDBC, ODBC drivers you're using. You can do that too. Use your tool of choice.
Will you be able to use Power BI embedded on top of Fabric stuff?
So we're not supporting that right now yet, but wait till we announce the Fabric capacities. You might be way more happier after you learn about that.
Do you have any online hands-on tutorials for Fabric?
Absolutely. There is a hands-on lab going on at 2:45 this afternoon. If you're not signed up for that.
Let me put a disclaimer. We tried yesterday and we had the networking problem. I apologize for those of you who tried yesterday, and I apologize in advance if we don't manage to fix it. We have quite a few people trying to fix that.
But I do want to say that same hands-on lab, we are putting it online into our docs. I think it's already out there. So absolutely go, even if you don't attend the lab, just do it at your own pace at home or.
Is there going to be a Fabric SDK? Is it already in development? Is it just going to be part of the regular management studio, or SDK? Or can you talk to that for just a second?
Yes, at many levels. So it's not Management Studio. We have an SDK for Fabric, a set of REST APIs that allow you to manipulate things like workspaces, capacity, and so on and so forth, create artifacts. Each of the workloads, the engines that are operating on Fabric, they have their own APIs and SDKs. SQL obviously has T-SQL. For Spark, you have different ways to schedule jobs. So yes, there's plenty of programmability for Fabric.
How's the integration with log analytics set up? If you have any integration, because in Synapse you can set up like Spark level logs and such.
Yeah. So Fabric ships with something called Monitoring Hub. And all workloads, not just warehouse, right? All workloads will write to Monitoring Hub. So you get very detailed, end-to-end troubleshooting capabilities, performance and troubleshooting capabilities. Now, all of those capabilities are not there yet, but you will get them over the next few months. Yeah, that is going to be part of the Monitoring Hub. Yep.
Thank you. We have spent some time recently kind of settling on a process for digesting our data and refining it. I guess they're called medallion, bronze, silver, and gold. And I'm wondering if you could spend a moment or two talking about any contrast between the way that might work in the Synapse environment versus the future state. Thank you.
The concept of the medallion lakehouses for preparation is the same. That doesn't change. If anything, in Fabric, we try to accommodate it rather than change it. You have the ability to do more things, and that is your choice. I mean, typically in the medallion structure, you intend the last layer, the gold layer, to be consumed by end users. That's where you put your Power BI. That's where you load into the warehouse. And in a Fabric world, that's where you are going to use the SQL endpoint on top of the lakehouse. That's what you are going to use Power BI on top of Direct Lake. What could be different, and it's your choice. You may choose to enable your data scientists to work at the silver level and produce data and push it into the silver. So you may have some consumption that can work out of the box at silver, or at bronze probably you don't need to do it. You have a SQL endpoint that you can use a silver layer if you have a need to access that data. So if anything, you may have a bit more flexibility that you may choose to expose to your end users or not, but you don't have to change anything. Practices are the same, best practices are the same.
We're going to be able to access Fabric data from ADF or a pipeline in Synapse?
Yeah, pipelines are fully supported today. Yes.
So if we have already...
You want the pipelines in Synapse to access the warehouse? Yes, you will be able to do that.
Just one more thing. All data in Fabric sits in one lake. One lake offers ADLS Gen 2 API. Even software, third-party software for ETL that can read ADLS Gen 2 will be able, with the right permissions, to read one lake and Fabric.
So I know the session was only supposed to go to 11:45, but we're okay to stay offline and have any follow-on discussions outside this room, because we are getting... Yes. Thank you all very much. And thank you folks online as well.